Om. We initiated this series about how people understand Bhagavan from different vantage points. So, to understand that, we initiated Ramayana as a case study. It is obvious that when bhaktas look at Bhagavan, they look with devotion and their understanding is obviously going to be skewed in favor of Bhagavan. I like someone, so I'm going to tell that person is great. But the interesting thing here we are doing is we are looking at how others who are opposing on the opposite side are looking at Rama. Last week we looked at a whole bunch of characters starting from Virada, Kabanda, Maricha to Vali, Vibhishana and Malyavan. We understood how many of them saw. We also understood that our gunas color the way we look at things. Gunas color what we understand or grasp about Bhagavan. In that journey, today we are going to do the same exercise using women who were on the opposite side in Ramayana. Again, the key effort here is we are looking at Bhagavan through the eyes of his opponents, people who didn't like him, who fought with him, who were hurt by the actions, either directly or indirectly. And as we have been emphasizing multiple times, Shastras basically help us to see Bhagavan in the right light. The way it does is it helps us to prepare our mind, to prepare how we look at Bhagavan by fixing our gunas. And that's the conclusion we already know. But today, instead of looking at the conclusion, what we are going to do is we are going to look at the entire process, how others did, and see if that conclusion we have already come to is correct. So I have pinned an article at the top of the room for the benefit of people who would like to read. So today we are going to look at 3 case studies. We are going to dwell a lot on Shurpanaka. And then we are also going to touch Tara and Mandodari. The reason why we are going to dwell more on Shurpanaka is because there is a lot of commonality between the nature of Shurpanaka and our dark vasanas. It doesn't mean that we are like Shurpanaka. It is like this: if the tamas is manifest in us, say 1%, and in her it is magnified as 1,000,000%. So she becomes a case study for us to understand what happens. And then we will understand that if we continue to trend in the direction of tamas, that's what will happen. So just like we look at Rama as an example, like this is what we want to lead our life as, in just for today's discussion, we will keep Shurpanaka at the center. Shurpanaka, as we all know, is the character that turned the entire narrative of Ramayana. In every character, in every khanda, there is one character that takes charge in Ramayana. And that character would totally transform the direction of Ramayana. For example, in Balakanda, it was Vishwamitra. In Ayodhya Kanda, we have our dear Kaikeyi. Then we come to Aranya Kanda, and that's where we meet Shurpanaka, who totally changes the direction, the narrative. We don't expect this is what is going to happen. Atmaji, can you hear me? Atmaji, can you hear me? Okay, 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 thank you. So we are going to look at Shurpanaka and understand what is happening in us. And we already know that Rama is in Panchavati with Sita and Lakshmana on the banks of Godavari, and he is living like an ascetic. He is living like a rishi. Not only with Jata and also Kshiravastra and things like that, but also his actions. Everything is transformed as a rishi. Now here is where Shurpanaka enters the scene, and Valmiki doesn't lose his sense of humor, because he uses the word edechaya. That means she came there accidentally, just like that. She stumbled upon. Now from a distance she saw Rama, and the minute she saw Rama, we already saw in Rama's wedding how people in Kambaramayanam, there is a beautiful way of expressing it. It may be apt to say that, because although Valmiki Ramayana is the best go-to resource for studying Ramayana, but if you want to enjoy it from the bhava of a bhakta, then you need to go to Kamba Ramayana or Tulsi Ramayana. So there is a way Kamban says, Kal Kandar, Kale Kandar, Tol Kandar, Tole Kandar. That means people who saw Rama's feet did not want to take their eyes off of Rama's feet, because it was the most beautiful thing they have seen. And people whose eyes were locked onto his shoulders didn't want to take anywhere. Same way, people who were looking at Rama in any one part of his body, they just saw only that part. So it is funnily mentioned that nobody saw completely the entire Rama. And that is a fact, because no one knows what Bhagavan is. We all know maybe a small piece of it, and we think that we know and understand Bhagavan. And the minute the Rakshasi saw, Valmiki Ramayana says, Vabhuva Indropamam Drishtva Rakshasi Kamamohita. So she is totally deluded. The word is deluded. Mohita. Moha means delusion. kama mohita, completely what is it like deluded by her lust. And then Valmiki Ramayana goes to give us a wonderful contrast. We will not go into the details of it, but we'll see a couple of them. Valmiki wants to cast this contrast. Imagine if you had a full moon and a new moon next to each other. How will it be? It's not possible, but if you were in such a planet with two moons, and if you saw a full moon and a new moon, how will you see? It's kind of like that. So Valmiki says, Sumukam Durmukhi. Rama is like Sumukam, very beautiful, and she is Durmukhi. Ramam Vritta Madhyam Mahodari. So Rama is like slender waist, like six pack, nice well built body, and she is Mahodari. She is like pot belly, like very ugly. Visalaksham, that is Rama is like beautiful big eyes. Virupakshi, her eyes are like crooked and kind of like so hideous. Sukesham Thamram Murdaja. Rama's hair is so beautiful. Nice locks. Beautiful hair. And her hair is like copper color. Probably it's an indication that she was probably using some dye or something. I don't know. But she is much older. Priyarupam Virupa. Sa Suswaram Bhairavasvena. So same contrast goes in different things, in voice, in age. Rama is so young and she is so old. Right? Rama is so sweet, melodious voice, and her voice is like so hoarse and so horrible to listen. And then there is all this comparison that is given. But immediately all these feminazis will come and say like, how is that? How you are abusing a woman by describing all these bad ways, blah, blah, blah. What we don't understand is these physical contrasts that are given are only to draw our attention to the physiological contrast, the way these two characters behaved. Like they say, face is the index of the mind. So Valmiki is just giving that index, and it is up to us to connect the dots with the later developments and go back to this original description and see like, yeah, it makes sense. What he says makes sense. So she comes and says like, hey, you are living in the forest like an ascetic. She just walks in. Rama and Lakshmana and Sita are doing their stuff in their hermitage. And here she comes and says, what are you doing as an ascetic with all these bows and arrows? Don't you know this place, lot of Rakshasas come? Tell me exactly. Tell me. The problem with the Asuric thinking is nobody will tell truth. Why? Because they don't tell truth. So the reflection of the world they see is what that's why she keeps emphasizing, tell me the truth. Why you are here? And Rama says like, hey, you know what? And she says, tell me straightforward, as if she has any ways and means to cross-validate that. She doesn't have anything. So Rama says, Asi Dasharatho Nama Raja Tridasha Vikramaha. So he says like there was a Raja who was called Dasharatha. He had no children, blah blah blah. He tells all the Ramayana, mini Ramayana there. And this is my wife Sita. She is from Janakapuri. And this is my brother. What is the character we can take here about Rama? We look at Rama as the most Arjava, That means the most straightforward. There is no hidden agenda. There is no twisting, no contortion, distortion. Straight. You ask the thing, I tell you. No ifs, buts, dance, nothing. Then Rama said, first he told everything. So if somebody comes and challenges you, hey, tell me everything. How much money you got in your wallet? Will you first tell everything, or you ask like, why are you asking, who are you? Just like Rama was suddenly found in the forest also, this lady is not to be, Rama also wanted to know. But here the honesty of Rama is, he first answered the question and then he said, he also told why he came to the forest. He said, because I am following my father's words. And that is why to follow Dharma I am here. Dharmartham dharmakakshi cha vanam vastutam yeh agataha. I came to the forest because of protecting Dharma. For sake of Dharma. So Rama tells the entire story and then he asks the question, who are you? Whose wife are you? Whose daughter are you? He doesn't tell only full story. She tells only half story. Here is where she says, I am and the interesting thing what Rama says, we have to look at the choice of words of Rama. And a lot of people take objection to this. So that is why I am taking time to explain this. He says, Tvam hi thava manyo manognya agni. Manognya angi. Manognya angi means like, who are you with this wonderful, beautiful body? So a lot of commentators said like Rama is making fun of her. Rama is not making fun of her, at least at this point. And he is not body shaming her. He is only saying because he has already seen Jatayu. He has seen characters like Kabanda and no, he has not seen Kabanda. He has seen Virada, who are like fallen characters. So from the perspective of Bhagavan, we are all children. We may have different shapes, different height, different features, different Rupa Lavanya, Anga Lakshana, whatever. But Bhagavan is not mocking at us because why? We are all his children only. So when Bhagavan is sincerely telling that, it basically feeds directly to the ego of this lady. And she says, yeah, you know what? I am actually I am a Rakshasi. I'll tell you basically I can change any form. Actually she says Kama Rupini. Now the word Kama Rupini can be said like, hey, I can change any shape. But you can also interpret like Kama Rupini means I am a desirable form. You can interpret different ways. But basically Kama Rupini means, that's what she says, I can change my form, I am so whatever. And she says, have you not heard of Ravana? He's my brother. Have you heard of Vaishravasa? His father. You know. And she says, I have one brother who is a sleephead, who always keeps sleeping, but he is very powerful. And then she says an interesting thing. Many times, much later in the Saranagati stage of Vibhishana, people say that Hanuman was the one who actually told Rama that Vibhishana is a good guy, he follows Dharma and things like that. Actually, the very first mention of Vibhishana as a good guy was certified by none other than Shurpanaka. Shurpanaka says, Vibhishana tu dharmatma na tu rakshasa chestitaha. Vibhishana, there is one guy, our brother is there. But this fellow is too much of a goody guy. He is a dharmatma. And he doesn't have any trait of Rakshasa like us. We are all Rakshasas. But this fellow is useless. So she is talking to Rama she doesn't know anything about Rama except what Rama told her. But she wants to, obviously you are opening all your cards, right? So Rama has already understood that Vibhishana is a nice guy from the horse's mouth. And then she says, hey, I can do, I can do cool stuff. You know what? Why don't we start like this? Why don't we start by getting rid of your wife over there? Because first thing she says is, what are you doing in the forest with a wife? So she says, I can get rid of this wife for you, and also I can get rid of this brother. You know what I can do? I will eat them up. They are very nice, tasty snack. I will eat them up, and then you can, what we can do is you and I can be hanging around. You treat me like a wife, and we can be jolly. We can be just hanging around in this forest. Nobody will do anything, and you can be my kind of love pet. Interesting proposition, right? That I will eat up your wife and brother for a snack. Rama then said, like, okay, that he understood that this lady is completely smitten by her lust. So he says, look at this proposition. You can't eat this wife and all. And also understand, if I marry you, you will be a co-wife. You will not be like sasapat. You are like having like a co-wife to deal with. Instead of doing that, look there. That's my younger brother. See, he is my younger brother. That means he is even more, younger. And look at him, very powerful and very sweet and all those things. At present, he doesn't have any wife problems. Rama didn't tell lie. People again say, hey, Rama told lies. That Rama didn't tell lie. He says at present he doesn't have any wife because he's been in the forest along with Rama for so many years now. This is the 13th year, right? The beginning. So for 13 years he has been there only doing seva to Bhagavan. So he doesn't have any wife. So you can approach this fellow. So Rama basically what he did was, he didn't want to have a problem. He just was trying to deflect the problem. We saw a few weeks ago how Rama, when he met Tataka, he did not want to go for the worst punishment, even though Vishwamitra told that. Why? He always wants to go in a progressive step-by-step way. And the interesting thing here is, he does the same here. He doesn't want to say, hey, Rakshasi, get lost. He says, you can talk to my brother. If he is okay, I am okay. Now, immediately, Shurpanaka came to, she thought, this fellow is anyway occupied. How about that fellow? He looks just like a clone of Rama. He looks equally appealing. So immediately there are people in India today, they are telling that what is the sanctity of this husband-wife relationship? This is the talk that is going on in many parts of India. What is the point? Why can't you have a husband and have other four more people as bedmates? People are putting like this in Twitter with video. So it is not that I am telling that this is a hypothetical situation. So our standards have gone down to that level. And even Shurpanaka will be ashamed of these characters. Right? Shurpanaka will be ashamed of these characters. That level we have fallen already. So the minute she approached Lakshmana, he said, hey, you know what? I will tell you the status. I am a dasa of Rama. So, if you marry me, you will become my dasi. So, how do you like to become a dasa's dasi? Doesn't appeal to you, right? So, he deflected it back to Rama. And now she is now pissed off. She says, what is this nonsense? He kind of like goes back to this female Sita. So the minute she said, she saw Rama and she said like, these two guys are playing with me. And the reason they are playing is because of this lady. If we eliminate her from the equation, then everything will be alright. So he said like, what we will do is, he said, I am going to get rid of this ugly, disfigured, dishonest. Look at her stomach. It's like she is very awkward looking. Now, whose description is this? Shurpanaka about Sita. I am going to eat up, and then I don't have the problem of this co-wife business. Now, translation here. See, what is the Rakshasa Guna here? People covet. People have this entitlement mentality, right? We see many second, third, fourth generation politician dynasty families where they have this entitlement mentality. This is all mine. I will make this thing dance however I want. Do you think that it is any way different from Shurpanaka's way of thinking? No. They just take. If this is mine, I just take it. So the minute Rama saw that Sita's life is in danger, Sita came running behind Rama and said, please protect me. And looking that, Rama understood that, look, this joking has gone too far. He says, Krurai anaryai saumitre pariyasa katanchanaha. Look at this. What kind of problem you have created for Sita? Now, this lady, Imam Virupam Asitam Atimatam Mahodarim. Now, this pot-bellied lady, all you need to do is disfigure her. All Lakshmana wanted was that order, and the next second her nose and ears were chopped. She could have been easily been killed, and then nothing would have happened. Nobody would have known, whatever, right? But this is the thing with Rama. We saw this trend with Maricha. Later, last week when we also saw Akampana, he was left alone. So Rama was using like a clear strategy of communicating the message to the other side by letting go of the person. Right? Now she went straight to Kara and Dushana. And they are also her cousin brothers, right? So, or co-brothers. So basically she goes and tells them, and this fellow is furious. Who did this? Who woke up with a death warrant? Let me go kill him. All this big noise he makes. And here comes the thriller. How does Shurpanaka see Rama and Lakshmana? Right? So this is probably one of the most, probably I wish Pravina ji was here. She would have probably given us a nice introduction or understanding of the Dvivachana. In Sanskrit, we have singular plural in all languages, but in Sanskrit there is a speciality. You have a dual case. What this dual case means is like you have two people. Like if you and I are going, instead of saying you and I can mention the pair of you. Right? Like in English we say the couple, pair. So we have only one or two words like that. But in Sanskrit you can express the whole thing in pair. So it says Tarunau. That means who is she saying? Two people are there. Tarunau means very young and very attractive. Tarunau Rupa Sampannau. They are like, you know what, looking so beautiful. And imagine this lady, her nose is cut, ears are bleeding, and she is supposed to be in pain. Sukumarao, they are so like princely people. Mahabalao, very powerful. Pundarika Visalakshau, their eyes are like lotus. Chira Krishna Ajina Ambarao, they are wearing jute, they are wearing like a black deer skin. Falamula Ashnau. So she has stood there and observed them what they are doing. She is giving a full field report that all they eat is only roots and fruits. So there is also a element of people, hey, did Rama eat meat? There are some controversial people who deliberately create those kind of questions, right? Now here is a field report from Shurpanaka. Dantau, Tapasau, Brahmacharinau, oh, they are very, very self-controlled. They are very, very composed. They are all like following Brahmacharya. So here she has seen Rama with Sita, but they are not like gone for honeymoon. Here she says that they are Brahmacharinau. And then she says, Putrau Dasharathasya Astayam Bhratarau Ramalakshanau. They are sons of Dasaratha and their brothers, Rama and Lakshmana. They did this. Now this one sloka you can take and you can enjoy for the next 1 hour. There is so much amount of depth in that, but we are not going to do that. And then she says, hey, these two people, when you look at them, I don't know if they are Gandharvas, if they are Devas, if they are Rakshasas, I mean like Asuras, if they are humans. They look like humans, but they are so beautiful like Devas. Their voice is like Gandharvas. I can't make out who they are. And she is completely lost in the beauty of Rama and Lakshmana. Now a tamas quality, what happens is it cannot look beyond just the physical appearances. And then she tells all this, and Kara sends 14 Rakshasas, and the minute they come, Rama just gets rid of them in not even 14 seconds. They are all like gone. And then she goes and says, again Kara brings Kara, Dushana, Trishara, all these big Rakshasas come. 14,000 Rakshasas. Rama dispatches all of them except Akampana in less than 1.5 muhurtas. That is like about 72 minutes. Imagine an army of 14,000 he dispatched in just 70 minutes. So now we already know from last week, Akampana was the first one to give the report, field report. So after the initial interaction with Maricha, it comes back. Shurpanaka now goes to Ravana and tells him that, hey, this is what happened in Janasthana. And she eggs him that I wanted to bring this trophy for you, Sita, so I got punished. She twists the story because she tried the same trick with Kara, who didn't bother. She tried to use Sita as a bait. Now what happens, we will analyze Shurpanaka in a bit, but she also says, tell me, how is this Rama? She says, again she is lost in the beauty of Rama. She says, Khandarpa Samarupaha. This fellow is just like Manmata. I don't know. She's kind of like daydreaming again. Now she could not, and then she says, hey, I will tell you one thing. All I can tell the way Rama's battle, I cannot tell when his hand goes and picks the arrow from the quiver, when he attaches to the bow, when he targets it, when he shoots the target, when the target falls, I can't tell everything. If you take one picture, I can, even in a photo finish, I can't tell where it started, where it ended. He is that fast. Now let's look at it. How tamas works, how mind works. When she saw Rama, she was smitten. It didn't bother to her whether Rama was already married. It didn't, all those things. I will eat your wife for you. That's her offer. And then when Rama said no, she said, okay, let's dump Rama, we'll go to Lakshmana. Now this is not love, this is lust. And then when Lakshmana says no, she says, no, I will go back to Rama, but I will just eat this lady and then I will have Rama. So what our mind exactly does here is what Shurpanaka also demonstrates. We also do the same thing when our mind runs from one object of affection and then we replace it with another. Whether it achieves it or not, it immediately goes to the next one. And then it comes back. Then it goes back. It has no understanding. It just, because mind doesn't operate with that judgment. And that is normally given to us by buddhi. But since buddhi has taken a backseat and bye-bye, because tamas has overshadowed. Because if your mind is more of sattvic nature, it will listen to the buddhi. If it is rajasic in nature, it may or may not. Depends on the sattva composition. But if your mind is dominated by tamoguna, it definitely will not listen to the buddhi. It will say like, get lost. And that exactly is the lesson for people like you and me when we look at Shurpanaka. So the idea of that inner Shurpanaka in us that makes us run from pillar to post, making the mind a merciless slave master. See, so people say, right, mind is a very good servant, but a very horrible slave master. Depends on what we do with it, right? So that exactly is what we understand from Shurpanaka. Then we will go to Kishkinta. In Kishkinta, we are not going to analyze Vali. We already saw last week in brief that Vali was killed by Rama, and Vali had a lot of objections to Rama, and he mocks Rama with a series of questions. And then Rama gives him all the answers and more, and then Vali came to terms that Rama did the right thing. He certifies Rama that you have done the right thing. Now Vali is in his dying moments, and that's when Tara comes, Angada comes. And Vali, we saw last time that Vali has surrendered to Rama the well-being of Tara and Angada. More than that of ordering Sugriva, he has given the responsibility of the well-being of Tara and Angada to Rama himself. Because Sugriva can violate due to his anger, his short-tempered nature, whatever. But Rama is there to temper. So we already saw that. Now what happened? This lady is in extreme pain and sorrow seeing her husband. And Vali has died. And they removed the arrow, and he breathes his last, and that's the end of it. And then she has a long list of lamentations. And in that lamentations, one of the things she says is, the only reason you got killed was because you took Sugriva's wife and made her a concubine. And that is, you have made your, she is it is supposed to be treated like your daughter. See, elder brother is like almost like a father, so that makes Ruma his daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law you should treat like a daughter. So you violated that, and that's why Rama killed you. Can you imagine the clarity of thought that Tara was having? And Tara is another interesting character. In the corner of her mind, she knows that she is one of the most beautiful women. And she looks at the corner of her eye, she looks at Rama there standing tall with the bow in hand. And she knows that lethal arrow came from his bow. So what happened? Here is a person who has relatively more sattva guna. Wali didn't listen, but didn't mean that Tara didn't tell. So Tara has a elevated percentage of sattva guna. So what happens when sattva guna looks at Bhagavan is the question. So we all have three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. So when we look at Bhagavan, through the eyes of tamas, we already saw how Shurpanaka looked only at the physical, or just that how Rama behaves or how Rama acts. That's all it can capture. But Tara can see much more. She can understand dharma. When she understands the dharma level of Rama, she is not seeing Rama as just a person who killed, because her understanding is much deeper. So you can look at it from two perspectives. So if you look at majority of the traditions in Sanatana Dharma, we treat Bhagavan as above the three gunas, gunatita. But in some tradition like Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, what they look at it is Bhagavan is made up of Shuddha Sattva. This is not Sattva that is 100% refined, purified. This is a special type of Sattva that only Bhagavan can have, and they call it as Shuddha Sattva just to identify that as a separate principle, as a Tattva. So here Tara gives a wonderful verse. Let's just look at that verse, and we are not going to go in detail. Again, this one verse you can take and enjoy it for next 2 hours. It's such a beautiful verse. Tvam aprameya cha. You are, what is it, like incomparable. You cannot be told that this is what Bhagavan is. You are beyond comparison. Now, here is a lady who is a victim looking at the killer in the regular parlance. But what is she saying? Is she telling that out of fear? Actually, her motive is, one request is, hey Rama, take the same arrow and again use it one more time and kill me. That's all her request is. But Rama is not bothered about that. He is saying like, no, nothing doing. But she is able to understand Rama is beyond aprameyacha, durasadacha. That Rama is standing right next to her, and she is saying, Rama, you are beyond access. Nobody can touch you. Nobody can reach you. Kind of conflicting. But what she is saying is, Rama, your real nature is not easily understood by us. You are beyond everything. And then she says, Jitendriyacha. That means he has controlled his senses. So this killing was not based on anger or emotions. She understood that. Even in the most traumatic situation, she is able to understand and articulate, oh Bhagavan, you are Jitendriya. Uttama Dharmakacha. You are the highest quality of Dharma. Akshina Kirticha. So you are of undying fame. Your fame cannot be contained. It won't even deteriorate. Vichakshanaha. What is she saying is, Vichakshana means like you are a person who uses your buddhi very clearly. And then she says, Kshiti, Kshamavan, your tolerance level is like that of, when we say tolerance, we give the upamana of Bhuma Devi. So she says, Kshiti Kshamavan. So you are like earth when it comes to tolerance. That means she knows that Wali was punished because he crossed the threshold of Bhagavan's boundary of tolerance. And that is, again, this one sloka you can take and analyze and analyze and analyze forever. Why I am saying that is, here is a person who has lost her husband, and she is telling the person who killed her husband that this is what your traits are. Is she trying to win some favor from Rama or something like that? No. Her only desire at that time, because of her frustration and her grief, is, hey, maybe you can also kill me and I am ready to die. Like a mercy plea. And Rama said no. He gave a few measured words of to control her solace, and her distressed mind was immediately calmed. Now here is our situation, our takeaway. See, whenever we look at these stories, we need to bring it back to our life. So what is the takeaway here? So if you have elevated buddhi, first of all, if you have elevated sattva guna and buddhi operating together, what happens when it encounters a grief or anger? It is better positioned to overcome that, and it can bring back to the normal state of sattva guna quickly, because buddhi is at play. Buddhi will advise, and the guna is also a good composition. It can come back to the base. But in this case, we are facing something very special. The situation is the sattva guna is encountering an even more elevated state of sattva. It may be a guru, it may be Bhagavan, it may be avatara, it may be their teachings. So when the sattva guna is coming in contact with a much higher quality sattva guna, and the buddhi is also locked on to that, then it can overcome the emotional turmoil, and that emotional turmoil doesn't have a long lasting effect on the mind. And what is that we see as a direct correlation to the sattva quotient of our mind to the buddhi operational in our mind. So even in our life, the takeaway is, we encounter some very bad thing, maybe somebody died in our family, some bad thing that should not have happened has happened. Now if our nature is sattvic, we also feel the same jolt like any other person, whether it is a person who is tamasic or rajasic. But the sattvic person has the advantage of buddhi coming to his rescue. And especially if that sattvic person is connected to Shastras, to Guru, to Bhagavan, their teachings, then the bouncing back time is highly compressed. So we don't stay down, we are like, there was a sudden jolt and then we are back to our normal state. And that is what we are learning from Tara. And it's very important that we take these lessons and translate it to our daily lives. Now before we go on to Mandodari, let's paint the picture. And Mandodari's testimonial is going to be even more interesting. So here Rama comes, in 5 days the Vanara Sena builds the bridge, they go into Lanka, they start attacking. Rama and Lakshmana get unconscious a couple of times by Indrajit, and all sorts of things happen. But the interesting thing here is they bounce back. First time with the help of Garuda, second time Sanjeevani Express version 1, Hanuman brings all the mountain and everybody wakes up as if nothing happened. Second time again he brings it back for Lakshmana. So Sanjeevani Express runs 2 times. So we should not forget that. But what happened now? Indrajit is also killed. And around that time there is a lot of destruction. The Vanaras also go after Kumbhakarna falls. The Vanaras invade the palace, not the palace, the fort, and they are also causing a lot of carnage by setting up fire and things like that. So a lot of destruction happening on the Rakshasa side. So the Rakshasa women are all telling. Now we have been, what is that we are looking today? We are looking at how the opponents are looking at Rama. Now all these Rakshasa women, we have been widowed, their husbands have been gone, maybe their children gone, sons gone. So what is happening is they are telling, hey, this is really ridiculous, because all these things happened because only one reason, that real idiotic, stupid, old hag. This is what they say. This is the old hag, old ugly lady. They are telling this. Who is this? Who has wrinkles in her body. Okay, this is how they are describing whom? Shurpanaka. The Rakshasa women are describing that this lady, the ugly lady, she needs to be condemned because she caused all this problem because of what? Her lust. Why did Ramayana happen? Why did Ravana get destroyed? Not because of Ravana coming and taking and meeting. There was no contact. It was Shurpanaka who facilitated the contact. In all this context, one should not forget that Shurpanaka was widowed by none other than Ravana. Shurpanaka married a asura called Vidyutjiva, and being a Rakshasa, Ravana went and attacked not only the Devas, he went and attacked the Asuras also. And in that defense, Vidyutjiva died. So, our superhero Ravana, I am telling that in a mocking way because there are some idiots in Tamil Nadu who call themselves as followers and worshippers of Ravana just to expose their hypocrisy. So, Ravana literally widows Shurpanaka and then he gives her a clean sheet. You can do whatever you want. You roam fearlessly, do whatever you want, you abuse anyone, anything, eat whatever, nobody will ask. And that is why she came to the Kara and Dushana's place, and in that vicinity she saw Rama and Sita and Lakshmana accidentally, and that's what we saw. So the Rakshasa woman, Asura women, the Rakshasa women are telling that, look, this lady is so hideous, ugly, disgusting, grey haired, and she wants to love Rama, who is like Manmata. So the women understood the cause of their destruction. They didn't fault Rama. They understood the problem was self-created by this Shurpanaka. So if we have only the level of understanding of a Rakshasa to analyze our own problems, our own limitations, we will be better off. So what the problem we are facing is our intellect has fallen way below the level of even these Rakshasis. And that is why we don't understand the problems we are creating for ourselves by our mind that is slave to vasanas. And then they fault Ravana took this Sita, and that is why all these problems came. Doesn't Rama understand Rama's ability? Just look at Sita, just Sita itself looks like destruction only. And also, what happened? This Rama killed Virada single-handedly, just like that, as if nothing happened. Understand, the women in these Rakshasis had all the data. In Janasthana, 14,000 Asuras were killed by Rama's arrows that were like literally like fire. Kara, Dushana, Trishara were just destroyed in no time. Kabanda was killed in no time. So the Rakshasis know all the details, but they were not able to overcome or overpower Ravana's negativity. So even for us, our own negativity, sometimes we know that we should not do that. See, like many, sometimes you look around relatives and all, like some people, they may have diabetes and they may have like blood pressure and things like that. And they, let's say that doctor says you should not eat sweets or whatever. Their blood sugar is like 200, 300, whatever. Okay. And people who know diabetes numbers, that's very high. But their vasana is pulling towards, I want one more laddu. I want one more jalebi. Right? It won't cause any problem. Why not one? So that is the thing that is driving. So the Asuric thought process is, why not do that? Why not have what we want? Without understanding, without having any restraints, without using any buddhi. And that is the example we are seeing from these Asuric ladies, these Rakshasis. Now, they also told about how Ravana did all these things, how Ravana refused to listen to Vibhishana, how Ravana refused to Kumbhakarna's advice, how this Ravana is an idiot, that when Indrajit himself was killed, when Atikaya was killed, when Indrajit was killed, he doesn't have the brain. Again he is going and fighting. Now this is just as Ravana is coming out for the last fight. Okay. And this is interesting that Rama never has violated even in the battlefield. And that is an interesting information these Rakshasis are saying. That Rama is not violating dharma even on the battlefield. Now Ravana is fallen. Ravana dies at the end of the battle. We are not going to go line by line and see what happened. Now the ladies other than Mandodari are all crying. They are also crying the same repeat of what the other Rakshasi women are saying. Lot of them swoon, lot of them faint and cry and all those things. But they are all understanding like, hey, you know what, the real reason all this thing happened is because you did the wrong thing by violating Sita, and you brought your own self-destruction. And you didn't listen to Vibhishana, who was always telling you what is dharma. Can you imagine the understanding of even a Rakshasi who is completely under the control of Ravana? Even their buddhi seems to be elevated than a lot of today's characters we see around. So we have to ask ourselves, where is our intellect sitting nowadays? And the reason why we have gone to that state is because we are so disconnected from dharma. Understanding what is dharma. So our situation is really pathetic, sadly. And then they ask like, you are not understanding all these situations. Now let's go to Mandodari, the highlight of today. Okay. See, all this drama that Rama is doing, Rama and Sita avatars, they come and they are doing this divine drama, that they are human beings. But look at what Mandodari is going to tell about Rama, and how she is going to expose what the rishis did not do. Mandodari does. The rishis, Vishwamitra said, okay, you are a great guy. I will give you, if Rama was only Bhagavan, he had that understanding, but he was playing the role of a guru also. So he said like, okay, I will give you Astra and I will be your guru. I will also give you Sita sand for you as Panigrahana. So he did all those things. So rishis did that, although they understood Rama and his intentions, they played along with Rama, not Mandodari. Now listen to what she is saying. She mocks the Ravana and she says, Satvam Manushya Matrena Ramena Yudhi Nirjitaha. You thought this Rama was a human being? What kind of fool are you? You are thinking Rama is a human being? Rama is not a human being. Okay? And then she says, this Rama killed Kara, Dushana, the entire army, just in no time. Karatasva hato brata tadaivano na manushaha. How can you say him as one human being who just destroyed Kara and Dushana's army in minutes? How do you explain one Hanuman coming across the ocean who caused the entire Lanka to burn? How do you call that as human act? How do you see Rama that he is still human when he has built this bridge and he has come across the bridge? So she is literally mocking dead Ravana for not listening to her words of advice and treating Rama as a human being. We will see one sloka, and that's the highlight of today, because this is the picture of Mandodari as what she saw Rama. Vyaktamesha Mahayogi Paramatma Sanatanaha. Certainly Rama is not a human being. Certainly Vyaktamesha Mahayogi. He is a Mahayogi. He is Paramatma. He is Sanatana. What? He is permanent. He is the ancient one. He is going to be permanent. So Bhagavan is Mahayogi Paramatma Sanatana. Here is Mandodari lamenting with Ravana's dead body, mocking him, looking at Rama nearby. Anadi Madhya Nidanaha Mahata Paramo Mahan. This is now, she could have told Rama is a cool hero and she could have stopped. She is bent on breaking the Rama's mask. She says, this Rama has no origin, no middle, no end. Exactly what we say about Paramatma. So she says Rama is Bhagavan. And then she says Mahat, he is great, Paramo Mahan. Now she says he is Tamasa Paraha. What is Tamasa Paraha? Now what he says, he is beyond Tamas, beyond all the ignorance. Data, he is one who gives, he is the nourisher. Shankha Chakra Gadadharaha. You are telling this is a human being, but he is none other than the one who holds Shankha Chakra Gada Padma. Who does that? There is only one, that is Vishnu. So she exposed Rama's drama completely. If Rama had to do any drama after that, we see Agni Pariksha and all those things, Rama's mask is already broken. So it is like in the stage now, if the somebody is having some different what is the makeup and they are acting, and suddenly all the makeup is exposed, and you know who that real person is behind that character, that their mask has fallen, their makeup has fallen, and you know that real person now. And that is the state of Rama. Isn't that very interesting? I find it very interesting that even at this dire moments, she would have that kind of wisdom to understand Rama. She is not exposing Rama for the sake of exposing. It's not like a golmaal she is exposing. She is celebrating. How come you did not understand this fact? That was her question to the dead Ravana. Srivatsavaksha Nityasri. So this person is having Srivatsa. That means who has Srivatsa? Only Vishnu. Nityasri. You think you have brought Sita here. But he is Nityasri because Sri will not leave Bhagavan. Look how beautiful words Valmiki has captured the essence. Ajeya, you cannot conquer him. Shashvato Dhruva, he is permanently there. Manushyam, this is not a human. He is looking like a human being, but he is not. Manushyam Rupamastaya Vishnu Satya Parakrama. Now she told word also. Look, I tried giving you all this explanation. Shankha Chakra Gada, Srivatsa Aksha, all those things, Nitya Sri. I will tell you now. This person is none other than Vishnu. Satya Parakramaha. Sarvai Parivrittod. Now you are looking at this person. Why he is coming here? He is Sarvalokeshwara. Shriman. Lokanam Hitakamyaya. Why he has come? He wants the goodness for everyone in this world. Can you see that depth of Mandodari's understanding? That Bhagavan, this is understanding, this is Bhagavan itself is one big level. But she understood why he has come. Sarva Lokeshwara Shriman Lokanam Hitakamyaya. He has come only for the benefit of everyone. So Bhagavan has killed all these things. Now what happened is you looked at all these Vanaras all around and you got confused, thinking that he is a human being. And the reason, Ravana, why you got killed, this Rama could not have killed you. You didn't listen to anybody's advice. You are a person who had so much tapas, you had so many powers, you had control over the devas. But what happened is, you rejected the wisdom of Vibhishana. You rejected the wisdom of Maricha. Ravana wanted to do everything in secret, but looks like there is no secret in Lanka. Just like in today's Lanka, there is no secret, right? They are also following the age-old tradition of self-destruction. They are destroying their own economy, right? So, how many people's advice was given? Maricha, Kumbhakarna, Mandodari herself, her father Mayasura, of course Malyavan comes later, Vibhishana, so many people, but he didn't listen to anyone. So that is another character we need to learn, that we should not become like Ravana. And then she says, We can say, there are critics who say like, hey, you know what, these are all lines that have been inserted. But you can look at the beauty of Ramayana, that the divinity of Rama in this drama, he is trying to mask it many times. When he sends and does he gives the what is it, like the liberation for Jatayu. Tell me one person who has done funeral rites for an animal before Rama or after Rama. No one. Tell how many people we saw Ahalya's Vimochana. He also did Virada and Kabanda. They got Chapa Vimochana by destroying their body. So Rama is trying to do all this divine drama, but unfortunately he can't keep up the cover that he is divine. He is trying to do his best, that he is just a human being. And it is Mandodari who completely exposes him thoroughly. Because the rishis also played their part, treating Rama, okay, yeah, he is Bhagavan, but you know what, yes, they also let him fall at his feet. Like for example, in Ahalya's case, although the TV idiotically shows that Rama is Rama's feet, Ahalya is falling, it's actually the other way around. Rama and Lakshmana fall at Ahalya's feet because she is like their mother Kausalya and Kaikeyi. They worship her. They literally worship her. And then she gets the full benefit by feeding Rama and Lakshmana. Because by the time Gautama also comes. So, we have been looking at how different guna people will look at Bhagavan, especially from an opposite camp. So even though you may be in the opposite camp saying that there is no Bhagavan, he is not Bhagavan, where is Bhagavan, all those things, as their gunas get uplifted from tamas to rajas to sattva, the understanding that this is Bhagavan, how he is operating, why he is operating this way, what is dharma, what is the actual thing that we need to do, everything falls in place because they are fixing at the guna, karma, vasana lens. If anybody who is wearing glasses go for an eye checkup, they will start with the first level lens and they say like, okay, first time you go for that, they put you a small lens and you still can't see, and then they put the next one, you still can't see, and then they change that. This lens is our guna, karma, vasana lens. When we make that more sattvic by aligning ourselves to dharma, our understanding will become better and better and better. And to do that, we have to look at Bhagavad Gita chapter 6 sloka 5, where Bhagavan Krishna says that you have to use a higher principle to uplift the lower principle. And what is the higher principle here? Buddhi. But that buddhi we have pushed to the corner. So what is happening? The mind that was supposed to be controlling the senses has gone amok, and it has gone and settled with the senses, and the senses have gone and settled with the world of objects, sense objects. And this confusion can be broken only through little sadhana, through satsanga. So the buddhi, you take and discipline and do some effort and you put it at the feet of Bhagavan. Now the mind is looking, where was this fellow who was always around me, he is missing. And then the manas also starts looking up to the buddhi, which is at the feet of Bhagavan up there. And then what happens? The manas starts going closer and closer to Bhagavan. As it starts going closer and closer to Bhagavan, it starts losing itself and it starts understanding Bhagavan in better light. And it merges with Buddhi and it starts seeing Bhagavan in a better perspective. So let us follow that Vibhishana. Let us follow that Mandodari. Let's follow that Tara, who all had the highest understanding to accept karma pala as it came to them, like Bhagavan's prasada. So let us all strive to increase that sattva quotient, and one of the ways that Shastras repeatedly tell is by always continuing to have satsanga. Satsanga not necessarily to coming to talks like this, but always associating with Sat. And that could be through Shastras, that could be through associating with Mahatmas, that could be associating with ourselves with a serious introspection. But that is Satsanga. So, with those thoughts, let us conclude our lecture for today. We saw how even the opponents of Rama are able to understand Rama's real dimension. Maricha was able to see Ramo Vigrahan Dharma, but Mandodari completely exposed this is not just Dharma, this is exactly Vishnu, this is the person who has Shankachakra Gada, and this is the person who is having Srivatsa Vaksha. So, with that, we know for sure that Rama is none other than Vishnu, and let us put our mind at the lotus feet of Bhagavan. Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Krishna.